Welcome to EPI STEM podcast. This EPI STEM podcast is brought to you from the National Centre of STEM Education at the School of Education in the University of Limerick. I'm your host, Geraldine Simmie, and I'm the Professor of STEM Education here at the Centre and the Director of EPI STEM. And my co-host,
Michelle Starr, and I am the Research Liaison Officer in EPI STEM.
Oh, welcome back, everybody. And we're delighted today to have a very, very special guest who's actually with us today from Scotland, and Professor Laura Colucci-Gray from the School of Education at Moray House there in the University of Edinburgh. You're very, very welcome, Laura, to be with us today.
Hello.
Yeah, good to see you and to be able to hear you and chat with you. I met Laura first some years back with Professor Sibel Erduran. We were doing the STEAM report with the British Education BERA Research Association, if you remember those good times.
Yes, I do. It was a cold October or November. It was very dark in Aberdeen, wasn't it?
It was indeed. And we had great debates about how we were going to bring the arts into STEM and whether it would come in as a little bit of sprinkling or in a serious way. Tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Yes, well, my name, I guess, tells a story already. It's quite complex. I heard you pronounce it, Laura, because, of course, my origins are back in Italy. And I trained as a natural scientist. There is an interdisciplinary degree that prepares people for teaching middle school. So I guess I was privileged already because I did a bit of biology, geology, anthropology, all sorts. And then I became really, really interested in epistemology of science. I was very, very fortunate to come across somebody who's very special and really dear to me, Elena Camino. I co-published with her later on as well. And she introduced me to feminist epistemologies. She was an activist. She is an activist as well. And the philosophy of Gandhian nonviolence at some point featured in our talks, made its way into my thesis. So I guess, I had a great start.
You did.
And lots of ideas.
Yeah,
yes.
a great journey. Yes.
A great journey. So you can see the roots there. Already for where I ended up. And then, of course, in the year 2000, I came over to the United Kingdom to do my PhD because, there were no opportunities to do a science education PhD in Italy at the time. So that was a kind of forced option for me, but it was very enriching. And as I said often to my colleagues, there was a PhD and then there was a whole life project. And my interest in culture and language that was definitely heightened by my stay in the UK.
Yeah, that's very obvious coming through your theorisations. So we know you from your research and theorisations about STEAM education, kind of that, the expansive breadth and the depth that you go to through that new materialist feminist lens. Will you talk to us a little bit about that lens that you use in the research?
Yes, as I said, the kind of feminist epistemologies, and particularly when I started reading around epistemology of biology from a feminist perspective, obviously I read extensively Evelyn Fox Keller and then Donna Haraway. These were really, really early readings for me. It goes back more than 25 years ago now. It was really, really interesting because it started challenging hierarchies of human exceptionalism, as we say, the patriarchy as well. Then I started reading Val Plumwood and then kind of, again, related to philosophy, but also philosophy of biology. So these ideas of humans at the centers of the universe was questioned. This idea that everything, evolution was by design and therefore everything is optimized for human purposes was under question. So it was really, really important step for me to challenge some of the canons according to which, we are educated in Western societies. And that kind of brought me to understand a little bit better these relationships as well between science as a body of knowledge and the way it influences our beliefs and the way we act in society. So the whole ideas of privilege, white privilege in particular, how certain languages make their way into sciences and others don't, and therefore how certain cultures make their way into science and certain values, certain practices. So science is a place of privilege, particularly in the West. So if we are now questioning ourselves and our place in the world, we also have to question where we're coming from.
Yes.
And think about in what way we can broaden our sort of ideas of what counts as knowledge, what counts as science, and what counts as legitimate.
Yes.
So this was my journey, really, and it really started from science itself, just from a different point of view.
Yes.
So I didn't.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can hear that and see that in your writing and in your research. I suppose you're asking very deep questions and asking us to reimagine science education today from those, like, who benefits questions, whose knowledge matters, and how to democratize knowledge and bring it down to earth, if you like, in a sense.
Indeed.
Yeah. Maybe Michelle would like to ask you something.
Well, I'm intrigued because you must have been at the forefront of this, bringing in this feminist lens into science and, opening it up and seeing, the impact with cultures and even to talk about power and privilege. So you must have been following a very novel idea at the time. How did you find that, Lara? Was it hard to say to others, oh, this is the type of PhD, this is the study, the research I'm doing? And were you getting a kind of, oh, what is that all about? Science is this rational subject. Why are you bringing in that? Well, did you have that experience, or were you just lucky to meet the right people?
I think I had a bit of both. Again, a little bit of luck there. There were people at the time. John Solomon was my supervisor, and Glenn Aikenhead as well as a sort of advisor, mentor. I was in communication with him. Originally wanted to do my PhD in Canada with him, and then there were no scholarship opportunities. So they had started together the Science, Technology and Society sort of movement, which was already established in a sense in the philosophy of science, but not so much in science education. So they were at the forefront. And I got in touch with Joan, and she got really interested in my proposal. And so I had a lot of support in that respect and in terms of developing my ideas. And I discovered that there was indeed a community, particularly in a Canadian context, that was dealing with these ideas. So, for example, Steve Alsop, remember, great conversations with him. And then it expanded into the science technology field that was somehow adjoint to education, and I discovered Funtovitz and Ravitz, and then obviously all the others that were working in that field. So there was a whole expanding community of science, technology, and society that was thinking about how to bring the global South into decision-making, agenda setting around science-related issues in society, which then became sustainability.
Yes. I think one thing you've said that is very significant in your research, and you've explained it again there very nicely, I guess, is that science and science education has often been just about abstract theory and up in the sky, and then trying to get everyone to understand the abstract and stay in the abstract world. But you, Steve Alsop and others have tried to bring it down to earth, including the social and emotional. But you've gone, I think, a step further in saying that pedagogies we need to be affected by. So we need to experience and really be affected by our relation with others, that it's no use for us to say we must cooperate and care for others. We actually have to be affected by. So science teachers need to move students into that affective care world. Isn't that what your affectivity is about? Am I right in reading it that way?
You're absolutely right. That's absolutely the central idea. And the affect is not just a passive emotion or a passing emotion, but affect is something that really connects you quite deeply, mentally and bodily. it's this idea of the body that is central to affect. So it's when you feel something inside yourself that brings you back into a place, into a time, and there you feel a deep sense of meaning. So that is what affect is. It's something that makes sense to you internally, and it's something that motivates you from within, and it's something that makes you whole in a way.
Yes.
It sort of reconnects your biography with your place, reconnects your thinking with time, reconnects your language with your sensations. So nothing is divided when affect comes in. It's a powerful force.
Yes.
And it's a body piece that to me brings me back to those roots that I was telling you about.
I don't know if you're even aware of Sheila McCrean's work in critical pedagogy in New York, where she actually has written all about embodied, learning, the learning stage theories were kind of up in the sky, abstract, but that actually education is relational and embodied. And that part has been missing from the discourse and is still missing from mainstream discourse. But I'm very heartened because I saw you up on the main stage at ESERA in Copenhagen, and you were one of the keynote speakers with 1,700 participants this year at the European Research Association for Science Education in Copenhagen in last August, and you were one of the keynote speakers. So that bringing in of the arts and co-equal space into science education as a serious pedagogical importance, another way of seeing the world, being affected by the world, that was very heartening for me. Because the mainstream rational thinking of science, the modernist view, if you like, that is being how will I say, the rug is getting pulled out from under that at the moment.
Yeah, but we're still pushing against it.
Yes.
Nevertheless. And it is something sometimes really quite simple, even like if you think from a teacher's perspective, how we're still thinking about confining bodies in confined spaces, regimenting times, expecting children to stand up and sit down at our calling. It's something really quite interesting in the way we're already molding imaginations and the abilities for children to attend to what matters to them. That's why I'm saying the body is so important, and with body comes space and place. If we really want to democratize, as you were saying, Geraldine, it really goes to that. Who we are in our own bodies, how we feel, and what it is that makes us move.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. It's very human, it's very profound.
Yeah, it puts the human at the centre then, which makes sense to me as being a science educator, but is not often there screaming out from you at the policy level or in the politics of science, the cultural politics of science education. The human at the centre is often well left out of the picture.
Yeah, and I can just kind of expanding on that, because you talk, all of your research is and your approach is all about that transdisciplinary. And can you just expand, which I find, just for the listeners, I find amazing, is that what you talk about making, and, it's about the way it's done, it's kind of narrow, and it's kind of bidding to the master. You make it the way, and this should be the end, that end outcome, etc., etc. Whereas you go into a more creative making. I don't know if you want to, if you explain that, because that's very good in that transdisciplinary.
Yes, so the making, rather than thinking about the product that is made, is the making, is the process through which we, again, engage with materialities and place. So the making with, it means that we're never separated from our own actions, and we're never separated from the materials through which we engage. So there is a kind of arch of mutual correspondences. This also relates to another theoretical pointer, which is enactivism, and this idea that the mind is embodied And it is obviously permeated the entirety of our body, mind, gestures. So by making with, we use our body, and by using our bodies, we make meanings. And these meanings speak back at us. So you will realize, for example, when we think about metaphors, that depending on where we've been, the trajectories we've taken, the things that we were pursuing would in fact influence what we see, the languages we use. So there's always a sort of mutual interactions. We cannot disentangle ourselves from our places and what we do, so what we make with in those places. That's why this with is really central, because then it goes back to that democratization again. What is that with made of?
Yes.
Can we question who is at the other end of that with, and what is at the other end of that with is highly problematic.
Yes.
So it's really thinking critically about that.
It is. And I love it's that multiple disciplines, interdisciplinary. It's actually not being arrogant about one discipline over another. It's actually about understanding different ways of knowing and bringing all of that together. And I guess even the feminist ethics approach is that, you know, the masculinist ethics is always about regulation and about abstract thought. And the feminist contribution to ethics is it's about embodied care and relationship and all of that. So it's kind of bringing all that in a wholesome way together. Tell me, I was in your university with you only a few weeks ago at the University of Edinburgh in Moray House, a beautiful space, and you had the STEAM education garden for provocation, and you know that idea of bringing in the arts on an equal footing with the science, bringing the social and emotional, getting young people and the student teachers there to feel that effective way to move them towards the human in relation with the world for climate sustainability, you know, I suppose solidarity with one another and all of that. Can you talk to me about that project and where you're going with it?
Absolutely. As I said, what's at the other end of that with is problematic. So the STEAM garden was really to work with that with, and thinking about how can we bring nature, more generally, even the most proximate type of nature we can find, which may be the solitary garden outside the doorstep, bring it back into the academy and respond, attend, and be with it. So the places in which we are and what we make in our places affect us. So we need to really consider and take care of our places in education and what they look like, what they feel like, and mostly what they allow us to imagine.
Yes.
So that was the process there, to not only to democratize by bringing more people into it, to more disciplines, but to expertise democracy. So how can we then stay with that diversity, with that multiplicity and changeability?
Yes.
So that the STEAM garden is a provocation because it invites you in, but then it also demands something of you. It asks you to change some of your value priorities. Shall we go and water the garden, which means perhaps engage in a non-profitable activity for 5 minutes? Yeah. Shall we go and take a rest from the stresses of everyday life, which means that then we might be open to notice aspects of ourselves, of aspects of our colleagues that have gone hidden. So these are the demands of the garden, and that's how we expertise democracy. So how do we learn to coexist in a space of difference?
Yeah, that my colleague Joanne Moles and myself, in our pedagogy of liminality and all that, we're trying, as I said, I can see the resemblance. We're trying to rethink, I suppose, a new way of speaking about what is education and science education in the moment, to actually have a new language, a new theory, a new way of thinking about it, so that it's more meaningful and it's more relevant to the young people today and into the future. And it's more about being, as you say, actors rather than reactors. And it's also trying to give a kick to the idea that you can have it all predetermined in advance and you can list the outcomes before you even start doing the teaching. It's to say, and of course that world of alternative education studies is blossoming at the moment in the academy. So hopefully we live in hope that there'll be some kind of better paradigm shift into the future. Is there anything else you'd like to ask, Laura, Michelle?
No, well, I mean, I'm just fascinated with the whole thing, because what it does is it just brings in that subjectification, which is, it's, you know, it slows down and even the learner, and it connects them with the non-human, which you're talking about in the garden or whatever it is that they're working with, and they become to know themselves even better. But I suppose what I'm just thinking of is, do you think that we could get this type of process, that creative pedagogy, that post-humanist, I suppose, approach into the classrooms?
I absolutely think so. I mean, I've done several projects with gardens in schools, in different contexts, not only in the West, and it's extremely powerful. Garden as a real thing, so the actual garden, but also the idea of the garden is very stimulating for teachers to work with, because obviously it connects them back to their own practices, their own activities, so they bring something of themselves into the practice. Yeah. So gardening, both as a metaphor and as an actual physical reality, is an extremely productive place to start this type of transformative processes. And as I said before, the garden is a heterotopia. So meaning, like Foucault was saying, it brings in aspects of science and technology. It brings in aspects of philosophy and history, but also of arts and cultures. So there are different entry points in there, and these different entry points balance each other, integrate one another. So it doesn't really matter where you start from. You're going to encounter another entry point or another viewpoint. So it's inherently a space for dialogue, which I find stimulating.
Yeah.
Well, Professor Laura Colucci-Gray has been with us here today for the podcast. Laura, is there any last final word you'd like to say, or are you happy that we'll sign off in a few minutes?
I'd just like to say that this podcast is a form of art as well. And it's lovely that it brings us in this space of listening to the voices. This is very intimate, and it can go beyond the academy. It can go in the car, it can go in I don't know, in your earphones. So I love it. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful listening and hearing about your wonderful research and your practice and your activism and your theorising. Really wonderful. So we'll finish off today with a piece of music. We have Caoimhe Fitzpatrick with us. Caoimhe is from Laois. She's a first-year student in the BA in World Music, and she's going to play an original tune. Her original tune is called Liberty's Baby. She tells me it's about human freedom, human liberation. It's a bit of an anti-war song in the middle of it all. So take it away, Caoimhe. Thank you very much.
With the proof, the freedom to be shot, or the freedom to shoot, it's all on you. To be the rabbit orange or the dirt or the boo. With the wine, the freedom to be dying on, the freedom to dine. Oh, it's all mine. So I'll be the butcher if you'll be the swine. And draw it up to the block with glee, 'cause that's freedom and what it means to be free, yeah. And when the big black cloud of the west comes rolling through, you'll be liberty's baby and pull on your boots and do what she did birth you to do. And when we're gunned down and gutted and incarcerated, we'll be Liberty's darlings and pull on our cuffs and the